All right, Andy Brainer here with the KIVU Gap Year, and as you probably have noticed, we've been interviewing our former alumni to tell you the story of the Gap Year, what it's about, what they've learned, and maybe some advice on future Gap Year students, what that might look like. Today we have Hannah Rhodes. She was the KIVU Gap Year class of 2014-15, which was just a year ago, so this will be a little different perspective. You'll get a student that experienced the Gap Year and then now is off at a Division I school. And so, Hannah, we are super excited that you're with us here today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited.
So let's just get right into it. So our first question to all the people that have been interviewed is, tell us in a phrase or a word, or maybe just summarize, what did the Gap Year mean to you, and what's your thoughts about just doing Gap Year in general?
Yeah, Gap Year. I think if I were going to sum it up, the biggest thing I learned is something so simple. It's right out there, but people are people. Humans, we're all humans, And Gap Year kind of gives you this tool. You start off domestic and you're living in a city and you're living in fellowship with other Gap Year students and you're being bombarded with self-awareness almost. And you're like, and it's insane. And then, so you get this idea, like, you can see yourself as a human, not as a Christian, but as a human. Here I am. I'm a human in this world. What does that mean? What kind of human am I? And then you kind of, for me at least, it was this whole perspective of like, oh, I get to create who I am, and I get to love who I am, And then it's like you kind of go abroad and you see this whole different group of humans. And you're just exposed to all this humanity, and it's so humbling to be connected to someone in a way that feels right almost. You can connect to them on a level of just sheer humanity, of these are your emotions and you can mirror my emotion exactly. And it's powerful. It's really powerful just to have those tools and that perspective.
That's awesome. So I like the phrase that you use, that you get to love being who you are. And
Yeah.
I think that's so important, because we see students that, we ramrod this whole, school thing, and we don't really give people space to just love who they are, who they were created to be. And then to see that in a perspective where you can love other people, no matter where they're from or who they are or what background they have. You can like love them where they are. I mean, that's pretty Jesus centric, don't you think? I mean,
yeah. I think that's who Jesus became to me on Gap Year. Was Jesus said to me, he said, Hannah, I'm asking you to love God and to love yourself. And as you love yourself, you're going to get to love other people. And
wow.
That's cool.
That is way cool. That's way cool. So tell us a little bit about the transition. So you went from Gap Year 2014, and then you went to university. So tell us where you're at, what you're involved in, and all that stuff.
Okay. So I'm at Texas A&M, Giga Maggie's.
Giga. Whoop.
Not yet. And I'm an international studies major, thinking about a religious studies minor, learning Arabic, kind of floundering almost in this really cool world we call college. But so I get to be involved in this thing. It's called Bridges International, and it's an organization that is geared towards international students. So that's something that appealed to me right off the bat. And I'm like, what is this? And I get in there, and it's like bringing international students to Jesus, and so coming from the perspective of Gap Year, that's a little different from what we do. We get to go and we get to love people, and that's it. Yeah. And that's Jesus, but we don't necessarily bring him Jesus. So what's cool is that being in this organization is allowing me, I have a home group, and I get to sit with 6 Asian students in my my house, and we just have conversations about Jesus. And they get to ask questions about who Jesus is, and I get to allow them, or I get to enter into a conversation kind of, and we get to try to understand each other. I think that's the biggest thing is, it's not like I get to preach Jesus to them. I get to say, what are your questions? What do you know? What's your background? And that's something that Gap Year has 100% allowed me to dive into an understanding of other people, other cultures, other religions, and then allow me to have a platform to speak about my own in a mutual understanding, not in a preaching.
That's awesome. Like if I could write that story for you in the gap year, and of course you can't, because you have to experience it and you have to practice it and you have to go out and like do it. But if I could write a story for students to engage with Jesus, that would be it. That you love people where they are and then engage where they are. And it's not like you have to bring, some sort of mantra or some sort of sales pitch, but you can just say, hey, what do you think about Jesus? And they might leave and say, I don't want anything to do with Jesus. And
Yeah.
Okay, all right, however that works. And then, but for those that are interested, you have a really unique way to just meet people in their story and in the way that they are. That's just freaking awesome. Well, congratulations. Way to go. You win.
Thank you.
So
it's cool, it's really cool because, I just want to kind of go on this a little bit, but when they do say, well, I don't know about Jesus, I get to say, that's okay. And then we still get to have a relationship. And that's not something that I felt I could do with before gap year. I couldn't relate to someone who wasn't relating to Jesus.
Yeah.
But now I can. And that is being Jesus. That's how I feel, which is just cool.
So we talked about this a little bit before the interview, and I think this is a great time to, engage. But so it's almost like we've created this box to say that if you're going to be a person that engages with Jesus, you have to look a certain way, you have to act a certain way, you have to use certain language and talk a certain way. And I think I don't know if it's like this at Texas A&M, but it feels that across the country, at least as I travel, people are pretty sick of that. I mean, they're pretty sick of saying that Jesus only exists in, this certain box. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying, why can't we meet Jesus along our own journey and our own story, and then encounter God in a real personal way, along with a corporate group setting, but not so rigid. It's almost like he's bigger than the box we want to put him in.
Oh my gosh, yes. I think going off of that, before gap year, it's this before gap year, not after gap year, but before gap year, there's this idea I had this idea of myself, and it was almost like I was in bondage to Christianity or in bondage to religion almost, and that's not Jesus. Jesus came to set the slave, came to set us free. And so going through the gap year and understanding who Jesus is allowed me to just see that freedom and accept it and not accept it as bondage. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think if you look at the statistics of the people that are rejecting faith today, I don't think that they're rejecting the fact that Jesus brings hope and Jesus brings freedom and Jesus gives us the ability to look at the world and certainly do life in a different way than the world does life. I think they're sick of all the add-ons, the things that we said, this is what Jesus has to be in order for you to participate. I mean, just sickening. So, all right, we could go on for like this for days, but what I'd like to do is spend some time like, okay, so if you're, Hannah Rhodes of 18 years old, and you're looking at colleges like our prospective students are today, like tell me that process for you. Like how did it work for you? And then maybe what would you advise students today as they look at doing a year outside of what we call traditional academy?
Yeah. So senior year, Hannah was freaking out. I was going through these applications, and the application, you start off and it's pick your major. What are you going to be studying? And I'm like, oh my God, right off the bat, I don't know what to do. Oh my gosh. And every single application was like this. And I just get this like swelling where I'm like, I can't do this. I don't know. And then the essays are like, so from your life experience, what's what are you going to contribute to the society? And I'm like, what experience? What have I done that's different, that set me apart? And so gap year came as this kind of platform for that. And I was scared. I was so scared to go to college because I didn't have a clear direction. I didn't have a self-awareness, And so when I decided to do the gap year, I obviously had no idea what I was getting into, but it appealed to me because it allows you experience. It allows you to find out about who you are, find out about the world that that you're not going to get in a setting that's in school. You know, you can't get it from going to high school. You have graduation, you have a summer, you're hanging out with your friends, and you go into the school and you're being pushed to make all these decisions, and there's no platform, you know, there's nothing to steer you. Me personally, at least. Yeah.
So yeah, not to bash anybody that does that, but
right.
It reminds me of that story of the 17-year-old boy that came to me, and he'd just come off his 7-day trip to Guatemala, and he lived down there with the trash deal with kids, and he just felt called that he was going to go and change the world through the Guatemala trash dumps. And I said, well, what experience do you have other than like any well-heeled human that goes to the trash dump is going to come back and want to give. So maybe you need a little bit more, you know, go down there and live for a month, go down there and live for 2 months, go down there and investigate who those people are, instead of just saying, you know, I know everything, you know? Yeah.
And that's what Gap Year is. It gives you that experience. It gives you the opportunity and the space to have those experiences in a unique way.
That's awesome. Yeah. Zach said that yesterday, that I interviewed Zach Musgrove, one of your classmates. And he said that too. He said space. And I've never really thought about that word, but how true is that? To give me some space to find out who I am, how I relate to other people, and then give me some experience so that when I go to university, I can kind of, you know, pony up and know what I want to do. It's awesome.
No doubt.
So let's talk a little bit about parents. How did your parents take the news that you were going to do Gap Year?
My parents were awesome during this, which is really, really cool. My mom actually kind of introduced me to the idea of Gap Year before my senior year started. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. I'm gonna go to school. I'm gonna go to college with the rest of my classmates, you know?
Yeah.
And then, you know, I wasn't feeling it. I was scared. And so at Christmas is when I was like, okay, I'll apply. And my mom said, okay, do it, apply. And I said, okay. And then, you know, spring break, I got the acceptance letter. And I kind of went to my mom and dad and I said, well, here's something, I don't know. And they said, well, what do you think? And I said, I think I have to do it, you know? Wow. And they said, yeah, I think so too. So they were really, really great about it. You know, they're both teachers, so they understand education is important. It's not nothing, but they could sense the need for it, I guess, personally.
That's awesome. What was your highlight of your Gap Year? So you get accepted at spring break, and then you go through the, you know, summer kind of worrying about friends who are going off to school, and you're doing this thing that nobody else is doing, and what am I doing? And then you finally get there and you do the 9 months around the world. What was the highlight to you? Like, what do you think back in fond memory of?
Yeah, my favorite part of the Gap Year was the Middle East. And I know a lot of people from my class have said that. But when you go into the Middle East and you get to live with, you know, Muslim family, and once again, that humanity that connects you is so powerful. And I think back on it with just this, like, I almost forget that it's real, because I got to go and be in community with people who I've been told almost I have no business knowing, no business being around. And so, just to see their humanity and then let them see mine, and then have actual true loving friendships from that, indescribable. And the food doesn't suck, so it's the bomb.
So it's no secret, that's my favorite part. It's no secret, I'm the head of the Middle East portion of the Gap Year, and I have some dear, dear, dear friends that are struggling, you know, to be honest with you. They're struggling in Israel, Palestine. They're struggling with Syrian refugees. They're struggling in Lebanon and Jordan. So to be able to sort of meet them in the struggle and to just say, hey, I love you and I care for you. And yeah, the world says we're not supposed to like each other, but man, how cool is it when we do? So that's cool. So anything about the Gap Year that you know, I didn't ask, that maybe you want to tell everybody and say, you know, this is Gap Year to me?
Oh man. Gap Year, I think a lot of the time when we talk about Gap Year, we talk about traveling, and it's amazing. It's a big part of the Gap Year, but another big part of the Gap Year is living in those urban communities, and, you know, having your internship, and then you have your classes, and you are given a lot of tools to kind of realize this like self-awareness, understand who you are, decide who you are almost. And I think that starting with that has just been so instrumental because you kind of build off of it in the gap, when you're traveling and whatnot. But coming back to college and being, in another new situation, I have that foundation of who I am and what God says about me, and almost a confidence in that I don't really see echoed all around me, which is kind of a scary thing, to be around all these people. And if I have this confidence, I want everyone to have that too. And I think you can't put a price on that. It's just something you can build on forever. And I think that's one of the biggest things gap year gave me.
That is awesome. I mean, you're like the poster child. You're like exactly what we want to say to the world is, come and join us. Come be on the journey with us, and we'll love you where you are. And we don't really care if you come from a Christian home or whatever religious home, or even I think this year we have a couple atheist kids on the gap year, which is really fun to watch. It's fun to watch them kind of struggle with some of the faith issues and some of the conversations about humanity. But to have that confidence, no matter where you are or where you're from or what you've been into, and to walk into college, I mean, golly, that's huge. You see it, how many people that you run with can kind of sit in the silence or sit in the loneliness or sit in the whatever and be comfortable sitting in the group and the excitement and the crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really, really cool.
So, futures, you've got this deal where you're taking Arabic and you're in international studies. Anything in the future? What do you dream about?
Yeah. So good question. I came into gap year because I was so scared of college and so scared of this idea of who is Hannah going to be in the world. But and then gap year gives you instruments, and I wouldn't say that it gave me a clear one direction, but in all my classes right now, I'm taking all these classes that I'm interested in that are about humanity, about people, about the Middle East that I love. And so I'm thinking it's all going to come together, and I'm going to be with my people. I don't know how it's going to look right now. I'm still kind of searching, but I'm doing what I'm interested in, and it's fulfilling to me to even just to be in school as my first semester. I already feel fulfilled in what I'm learning. So it's really cool.
Hannah, thank you so much. Thanks for taking your time. I know you're busy. I know you got tons of stuff to do, but I'm just really thankful that you would, take the time, share your story, help us understand a little bit about what you experienced. And then, who knows, somebody will watch this and they'll say, yeah, that's exactly how I feel too. And so, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I love gap year, and I think it's a great thing. And I think it's worth your time to think about, if anyone's watching.
Yeah, they're watching. I'm telling you, they're watching. Well, thanks for joining us here. Again, we'll just continue doing this, interviewing students. And so if you want to come and see, past students, what they're into, and to get some stories, pay attention, watch it on the YouTube channel. You can see it on our Google Plus page, or you can go to KIVUGapyear.com for more information. Andy Brainer here, signing off, and see you next time. Thanks, Hannah.